you believe that we started recording right in the middle of 2020 with all of the COVID and lockdowns going on around us, unable to meet up? So like many a young gentleman, we turned to the internet for our entertainment. Tried to find a place where we could meet up and talk about the good, the bad, and that time that Stu saw a pelican on the canal. In order to facilitate our dreams of answering all of the big questions in film, and after a few attempts at recording via other methods to various levels of success, we found Zencastr, a super easy web-based one-stop shop for recording. Log in and you're ready to record in a matter of seconds. It doesn't take a tech genius to get high quality audio or video. And on top of that, the one time we have had an issue, the fact that the multi-layered backups are stored locally means it's easily fixed all in browser. There are plenty of tools you need when you start podcasting, so let Zencastr take that headache away as it offers a place to record, edit and distribute all from one website. Any lazy bones Jones can pick up and play and have studio quality audio or 4K video put out for the world to see when using Zencastr. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code CAGEFIGHTING and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. We want you to have the same easy experiences we do for all our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. And now, hit the music. Hello and welcome to Cage Fighting. It's your main man, Andy Gillard here. Hope everybody is keeping well in the world right now.
Phoebe, hello.
The fuck's that, Stu?
You should have watched Guest House Paradiso and you would know that that's how they talk to each other through the kitchen. Hello, everyone.
Yes, sorry. Completely through. Is this a kind of secret hello to people I don't know about? Excellent. Are you okay, Stu? Been keeping well?
Yeah, my cat died, but that was fun.
Oh, man. It's not fun. I'm sorry to hear that, Stu.
Well, she's not. She's the cat that I chose, but I left her behind at my mum's when I moved out years ago. And she was nearly 18. So she'd had a very, very good innings. Yeah, she was just, time took hold of her. Probably had a bit of a stroke, they don't know, but it would cost 1,500 quid. So, and it was not fair to do x-rays on a broken cat like that. So,
yeah.
Yes, Kira is no more. But yeah, it was sad, but she got one last Eurovision in her. So that was the main thing.
Bless. I mean, that's the perfect way to start a podcast about comedy, isn't it? Let's be honest. Oh, dear. Right, okay. We are here to discuss comedies, the part 2 of Brit-Comedy. It's going to come in 3 parts. We've got the beginning, which is going to be our throwback film, where we're going to look at Guest House Paradiso. Then we're going to go into what I've dubbed the 90s, noughties and teens. And then we're going to be reviewing a film which will be out in the cinemas next week, 24th. So that'll be this coming weekend by the time this podcast goes. So we'll go straight into Guest House Paradiso. It was a bit easier to find than I was expecting. First off, it feels like there is still a community out there who likes this kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I sent it to Goldie as well. The first thing, watching that on a 85-inch screen at home in 1080p, which you thought, well, there's no need for this to have ever been upscaled and restored to this quality. Especially with the quality of some of the background matte painting, which I didn't realise at the time.
Yeah.
But it all adds to it. But yeah, it was very simple. It was on all of the services and all of the websites that you can imagine. Just not ones where you could legally find it, which, again, they've lost out, which we talked about this weeks ago, where there's got to be a service. You think BritBox would be ideal for this? A service where...
Because that surely holds all of Rick and Aid's other work.
Yeah. You think, well, how much can this possibly cost to host it, to license this nonsense out? And yet, no, it's nowhere to be found. Can't even rent it, can't even buy it. So, have to get. I mean, I did buy it. I bought it twice. Well, like I said last week, I bought a video and DVD. So I've had my fill of it, and now you can't get it anywhere else anyway, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, it was.
I have just looked on on Amazon just to see if there is any copy out there. This must be a foreign version of it because it's FSK 16. It looks like it's potentially German, and you can buy it for $39.99 with £1.26 delivery on DVD. So you can't get it in this country by the looks of it. You have to import it, which is bonkers because this is exceptionally British.
Yeah.
So, yeah, why can't we get this? That's just really odd to me.
But it almost kind of added to the mystique of it all as well. I mean, not seeing this for so long, and then
yeah,
within seconds you've got the whole thing with the tape recorder and the just. I mean, when he's driving down the road on his motorbike, drinking and pulling things out of his jacket, and I was sitting there thinking to myself, normally Andy would hate this.
I was immediately hooked as soon as he was on that motorbike. I was like, yeah, I'm back in the bottom world. This is perfect. This is exactly what I want. Like, I'm not hugely into slapsticky kind of stuff normally. I know I'm not, but Bottom does sort of scratch that primal itch when it comes to that kind of silly nonsense. There's very few shows that work for me that are like that, but that's definitely one of them.
Yeah, I mean, where else are you going to find someone standing up on a moving motorbike just having a piss? And I was sitting there laughing to myself on my own in the middle of the afternoon for a good hour and a half. Yeah. I did wonder, given the 20 plus years or whatever since last time I saw this film, have I matured? And the obvious answer is no. But it was more a case of, will I laugh again at stuff that I remember? And his whole name, the whole name being Mr. Thwaite, and it's Twat. The whole thing, it just came
every time. Every time they said that joke, and they said that joke a lot, I laughed at every single one of them.
And then he takes it to the no, it's cunt. Fuck. But it all goes back again, doesn't it, to Alan Bastard and all that stuff? It's been done before by them.
Mm-hmm. And they've always leaned into that gag, and like, yeah, they do tick a lot of the boxes that we've seen throughout their entire career in this film. There's a lot of things that we do recognise as Rick and Aid. So it is just literally their career on film.
Yeah.
Which I kind of wondered, like the fact that I can buy the German version of this DVD does astound me a little bit, because I wouldn't have thought this would have left the British Isles.
No. I mean, Spud Gunn playing the drunken Italian / Romanian chef. It doesn't kind of, I mean, with the Italian stereotypes later on as well, it doesn't lend itself to Anglo-European relations very well. But then again, they might like that as well. They might like the complete Englishness of it all. Who knows?
Yeah, potentially. I genuinely wonder if there's anybody in the States who's watched this film. Because I can't imagine that anyone in the US will even understand what Bottom is. They'll probably know Rick Mail from, he was in the Harry Potter film, wasn't he, in the first one? Or was he cut from it? Because I can't remember if he was in it and cut, or if he actually appeared in it. But like, I think they may vaguely know him. And obviously Aid was in one of the Star Wars films. So they might recognise the faces, but I don't think they'll particularly know who they are in their almost, legendary comedy status in the UK.
They'll know Drop Dead Fred. That was a pretty big film.
Yeah, Drop Dead Fred. Yeah, that's fair, because obviously that was mostly an American production, I think, wasn't it? Obviously Phoebe Cates was in it, and I think Princess Leia herself, Carrie Fisher, was also played the mom, if I remember rightly. It's been a while since I've seen that one. So yeah, they'll know Rick from Drop Dead Fred, but I don't know what they'll know Aid from.
I mean, even that old PlayStation game, Hogs of War, where he was a narrator, which is...
Yeah, how weird is that?
Just utterly strange. So, yeah, it's. I mean, like I was listening to. I mean, they were talking on Constellation this week, and they brought up Family Feud, which I presume is Family Fortunes, just under a silly name.
Yeah, it is.
And they're talking about like the 5 hosts of it over the years and how some are legend. I've never heard of a single one of them. And obviously, they're completely. Everyone knows who they are, and none of them were Regis, which is the only game show host I know from.
I know Steve Harvey because he's the current one. That's the only one I know of.
Steve Harvey and Seacrest and all them kind of people, but it's a similar vibe that you look at them people who are proper like pop culture icons in this country, where you'd never imagine it would translate, especially over there. And if we can't get all this stuff here, then they've got no chance.
Yeah, that's true. I was quite amazed at the cast list. Like I had sort of no recollection outside of those pair being in it. I didn't know that Bill Nighy was going to be in this movie with Kate Ashfield, obviously from Shaun of the Dead, and also from Shaun of the Dead, Simon Pegg was in this movie.
Yeah,
and I was just kind of blown away by these, these actors who've gone on to have kind of massive careers. And I presume Bill Nighy would have had, a fair career before this because he's, obviously being a bit of an older gentleman. But I don't really know a lot of his work pre-2000s, if I'm honest. So it was a bit of a surprise to see him rocking up in this. And he's sort of revered as being a proper actor. He's got comedy chops, but he's still a proper actor. So for him to have appeared in Guest House Paradiso, it blew my mind seeing him in this.
Yeah. And Simon Pegg with a nipple piercing as well.
Simon Pegg was very good in this. But again, before this film, I'd have known him from Spaced, which I think was also 1999. I don't know any of his other work. I know he was in a sketch comedy show that I never saw. Big Train, I think it's called.
Yeah, I remember Big Train. Yeah, it was good. Was he the one?
I never got.
Big Train was one of the launches for, was that like E4 time as well? I remember that. When they brought it back. But yeah, I used to watch Big Train. I completely forgot all about that show.
I've seen the odd clip because every now and again one resurfaces on Twitter and it, does the rounds, but I don't think I ever actually watched it. And so yeah, to see him in this felt like this was like the birth of Simon Pegg for me. But he obviously done bits and bobs beforehand. Obviously, it was written and directed. Well, actually, it was written by both, it says here, but it says that it was specifically directed by Ade Edmondson, which I don't know why, but of the two, I would have thought that Rick would have been the director of the pair. Maybe because he seems a little bit more flouncy and arty, and Ade seems a little bit more sort of, not straight-laced, because he's clearly a nut job as well, but I just wouldn't have had him down as the director. I don't know why.
Well, you look at if you go what he's got on to do since then, he has done directing stuff. So, well, I can't remember. It's been so long since I've watched them all. You would have thought he would have directed an episode of Bottom or two.
Yeah, I mean, quite possibly. So, according to IMDb, it's got him down for 11 director pieces. Like French and Saunders Live, obviously his wife was in that, and then it's a lot of The Pogues, Comic Relief, Uptown Downstairs Abbey. I wonder what that is. It is an episode of the Comic Strip Presents. No Bottom on here, funnily enough, though. Only this. So he looks like he's done bits and bobs and music videos and whatnot. But yeah, I was just a little bit surprised at that. I wonder if Rick ever did anything. I'm going to have a quick look on that as well whilst I'm here. So he's got like a 6.1 on IMDb, this. I think that's kind of fair. I can see why it's going to fall in the middle, because I imagine that people will either love this film or they'll really hate it because it's a bit weird, isn't it? No director credits for Rick, by the way. But yeah, do you know what I mean? I can imagine that a lot of people love it and a lot of people hate this kind of stuff.
Yeah, you can't. If you review it properly and sensibly, you can't really give it anything more than a 6 because it is so bizarre. I mean, the radioactive fish and the power station next door and the swing on the edge of a cliff and all, everything about it is stupid. but at the same time, that's the point.
Yeah. Just like I just had a flashback of the bit where Simon Pegg, when he's shouting at Rick and Aid when they're fighting, he's telling them to keep it quiet so that his family can get sick. And then he does that burp, and then he's almost sick but manages to catch it. And I don't know why, but it was the burp and the way his sort of body shook. Like, the physical comedy in this is as good as anything I've seen. It was very funny in parts. But yeah, you are right. Like, you can't seriously sort of review this and critique it because it's absolute nonsense. But it's enjoyable nonsense nonetheless.
Yeah. I mean, just simple things like, oh, he poked me in my eye, and she walked into my finger. And it's like it is schoolboy stuff, and it just works. And like them two having hidden passages for him to pervert people through, and obviously knowing all the backstory of his character in Bottom and the underwear and just everything about it. It's genius. It's almost like it's a high level of genius to be this funny with something so...
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, it's only going to appeal to a very, very small number of people, I think.
Yeah.
It has made me want to watch, like, all of the live shows and stuff again, because I haven't seen them for years either. I wish they wore out the video of, was it Bottom Life 2, where they were sent to jail and then went on the run? 2
was Hooligan's Island.
I thought that was 3. But yeah, the one in jail, I remember going to the football like every week. Obviously, Mum was driving the car and me and my cousin were sat there. And we would just quote the show back at each other. Like, we knew it verbatim, the whole thing. I'd always do Rick's parts because I had long hair. And my cousin Liam, he had a skinhead. So he obviously always did Aid's parts. So I have this real nostalgia for it that I don't have with a lot of other shows. And now I really want to watch them all again.
Because 2 was the part where Rick's is lying on his side and they completely cock it up and they just start laughing for 5 minutes constantly.
Yeah. This is great. How many live shows did they do in the end? Was it 5?
I think the one at the Civic was the 5th one, the one that I saw live.
I think I've seen 2 because there's the sequel to Hooligan's Island where they were still on the island, and then there was one with a atomic bomb and it was set in the bathroom.
Yeah.
And I saw both of those at the Civic.
So Bottom Live, there were 5, yeah.
Yeah.
So according to this, Bottom Live was the one. I'm sure Bottom Live was the one in jail. Oh no, Bottom Live, big number 2 was.
That was the jail one, was it?
Yeah, but that was it was the second part of that one. It was the second part, yeah. Yeah, Hooligan's Island was 3, but it was the one on an Arse Odyssey 2001. The Wet and Weapons Grade Wide Fronts Tour, that was the one in 2003 that we saw at the Civic.
Was that the one that's in the bathroom? Was that the one back on the island?
No, that's the one, yeah, bathroom, yeah.
Brilliant. So yeah, I think I'm going to add them to the watch list if I can find a way to find them. Because I bet they don't exist on DVD. Like, if they're still on VHS, that'll be lucky, I think. So that need to find a way to watch those ones. Definitely. So would you recommend people to watch this show?
I mean, if you listen to this podcast, you've got half a decent chance of liking this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, either you have or you're Tara. So I'm guessing it wouldn't be right up her street, really. But if you've got a silly sense of humour, then yeah, absolutely give it a go if you can find it. Any of it, really. But I think this would be a nice entry point into the kind of Bottom universe in a weird way.
Yeah. So one of the questions I was going to ask you that I thought if you were to like recommend an episode to somebody to watch, what would the episode be? What's like the most Bottom episode? I kind of think I can't remember if is it the first one where they get the sex spray, the pheromone spray, and he wafts it at the women in the pub. Like, I feel that's very bottom because it's dumb as fuck. It's them trying to have sex and be the most hideous human beings you've ever seen. Either that one or the Halloween one where Richie shits his pants when he's wearing those tights. Again, they're just wonderful silliness. It's either one of those two for me. Are there any episodes that you think you could recommend?
I mean, the one off the top of my head was the camping, where they're using the blowtorch to get the hedgehog to eat.
Oh, common.
Yeah. One ball.
This is the hedgehog because he shares one ball. Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great episode. Super. Okay.
So it obviously ends up in, calm down, Richie, and then it obviously ends up in the stream and the fish and everything about it. That blow dart obviously goes other places. It's just everything you expect an episode of Bottom to be. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I could agree with that.
Gas Man, you can just watch them all. They're only half hour.
Well, there's only 3 series as well, isn't there? I think.
Yeah.
So what? 18 episodes. That's a good Friday night. That's all you need. Job done. Welcome back. So we're here to discuss our second part of Brit-Com. So last time out, we spoke about sort of 50s, 60s up until the 80s. So Mr. Matthew Guy has asked us, what old show, and like proper old pre-90s, because he's only a whippersnapper himself, what old show would be the most accessible to today's audience, do you think?
I was going to say, I mean, we didn't mention it briefly, but because of the whole kind of ladette stuff, I was going to say Men Behaving Badly, because it's not too crude that it's going to get cancelled. It's not too silly that people are going to think it's too immature, but it's also very relatable, even for people. You just go at any pub now, any pub on a Friday or Saturday night, and you still see people acting like these two. Well, the 4 of them, really, before she turned into a blowfish. But poor Leslie Ash. But yeah, I think Men Behaving Badly does tick a lot of boxes for people in the 20s, even if it's obviously dated to the 90s era. But the way people behaved then, they still behave now. They just don't show it very often online.
I mean, it kind of feels like you could I know we'll get on to the in-betweeners in a bit, but you could legitimately see those lads growing up to be a version of...
Yeah.
Oh, what I can't even remember what the actual characters' names are. Clunes and Neil Morrissey. Can't actually remember what the characters' names are off the top of my head.
Gary?
Probably, because like everyone knows a Gary, so it kind of fits with that, doesn't it? So it could be. Yeah, Martin was Gary. Caroline Quentin was Dorothy. Leslie Ash was Deborah. Neil Morrissey was Tony, which again is another... It feels very British 90s, doesn't it, that?
Yeah.
Apparently Harry Enfield was Dermot, because he was in the very first season of it, wasn't he? But I don't think I've ever seen the very first one. I've only seen the BBC ones, not anything when it used to be on ITV. So I don't remember Harry Enfield.
That's got to be on BritBox. BritBox, it has to be, surely.
I would have thought so. Did I? Oh, 7 seasons it says here it ran for. I was going to say, I wondered how many years it ran for. Only 45 episodes, though. Again, that feels like a staple of 90s comedy, doesn't it? That it was huge.
Yeah, it was that and Game On.
I loved Game On. Game On was like one of my favourite shows at the time. Brilliant. Like, that's the reason I occasionally wear a deerstalker to bed. I don't know why. It just, yeah. I loved Game On. It's one of my favourite shows. And obviously every ginger person who we went to school with just got abuse. They were always called, ginger bollocks, and yeah, great days. I remember we went to, have you ever heard of Ingestry Hall?
Yeah.
So Ingestry Hall, for those who don't know, it's a big stately home in the middle of, I think, Staffordshire, where they put on a week's worth of performing arts. So if you're into drama, music, art, you go there and you'll do a performance or whatever. And then at the end of the week, you all get together and share what you've done. So we went there the 1 year to Industry Hall, and it was just all of us. I think I was year 10. So there'd have been like slightly older kids, but mostly slightly younger kids. And we watched Game On one night, and there's one bit where, Christ, I can't remember the characters' names, but the main guy, he was talking about someone he fancied, or they're called Maureen, and they was taking the piss out of Maureen. And obviously at school, you'd always call people by their mum's names. And one of the lads, his mum's name was Maureen. So we spent the whole night just quoting Game On about that. And yeah, he hated it. And of course, the ginger ones just left the room because they were getting such abuse that there's actually can't be in this room anymore. Right.
I wonder if that show single-handedly destroyed gingers for a whole generation.
I mean, I think it kind of did, or at least it did in, millennial world. Because before that, I don't remember abusing people for having ginger hair. But as soon as it came out, that was a reason to target people.
Yeah.
Like, as unfairly as it is, it's kind of true.
I don't think we had any. But no, off the top of my head, I can't think of a single ginger person in my year at school. Then, well,
he had a couple, not many.
I think there was a couple that were like strawberry blonde, so the kind of day walker kind of vibes.
That's enough, though, isn't it? That's enough of an excuse. Like, it's ginger enough to get it.
Yeah, the ones that you can almost see through. We don't have any of them.
We did. We had a couple, and they were always Wolves fans as well, so their hair would clash with the shirt.
Oh, poor Ed. Give his little shit. You know what? That was the only reason everyone went to see that rugby film as well, because Sam Janis was in it.
Yeah, she was like hot shit for a minute, wasn't she, Sam Janis? And like, did she end up on EastEnders? Is that what I think she's doing now? Because there was like I say, she was hot for a good couple of years, and then she just went into the wilderness. I mean, literally, she was in that show Babes in the Wood, which I think was a show they tried to do that was 3 women who lived together in, was it Boreham Wood, maybe? And it was terrible. And then she kind of vanished for years and then came back in EastEnders. And I'm not even sure if she's still in it, but.
So she's not, is this her?
No. I think she's changed. Yeah, Samantha Womack. She goes by.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, she was in EastEnders, yeah. Don't know if she still is.
Apparently, she's in both of the Kingsman films. I don't remember in those.
What was that film called? So Up and Under. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she had her arse out. Well, that was the whole thing. Oh, lads, we're going to go and see this random rugby film that no one cares about other than her.
Yeah, I remember going to the cinema to see it and not particularly enjoying it. But she was in it, so that was enough of a reason to go.
Neil Morrissey, Tony Slattery, with Rhys Jones.
What a movie. She was in The Grimleys as well.
Oh,
do you remember The Grimleys?
The Grimleys was brilliant. I loved it. Yeah.
Obviously, being from Dudley, yeah, it was great. Like, the references were superb. And loving Slade, Noddy being in it, perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder if that's available anywhere. I wouldn't mind rewatching The Grimleys.
They nailed the accent as well. They didn't mess it up, which is very easy to do.
Yeah, frustrating, but yeah, you are right. What a show. So that was your answer to a question, was maybe behaving badly. I'd gone slightly older. See, I think Blackadder is probably the most accessible from at least the 80s. I think Blackadder is, as I said, pointed out last week, like I feel like it's funny because it's funny rather than it's funny because it's contemporary. So I think it's got that agelessness to it that I think people probably still get along with. I did throw it into ChatGPT just to see what they think would be like the premiere pre-1990 sitcom. And it came out with Fawlty Towers. So the Fawlty Towers would still be accessible to the modern audience. And I've sort of got like, I said, I'm not a love-hate relationship. I like Fawlty Towers. I do wonder if the reception to it might be a little bit off-key, though. Because I kind of feel like there's this thing with, like, the generations that came after ourselves. They see racism and they don't recognise that it is a statement on racism. They see it as it being racist. So, for example, like there's a lot of talk earlier this year about 30 Rock, saying it's racist because Tracy Morgan's character, he's an idiot and blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, that is because it is a statement on how black people in the comedy world are treated. They're not saying that they are morons, they are saying that they are treated like morons. And I kind of feel like a lot of the modern generation, I don't think they would quite understand that with Fawlty Towers, that Manuel isn't the butt of the joke. He's the one that facilitates the joke of Basil Fawlty looking like a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Like, he's at the centre of the joke, but the joke isn't on him, if you get what I mean.
It's exactly the same situation as what I said last week with the with Love Thy Neighbour, where that is, if you look at a surface level, the most racist thing in the entire world. But when you actually watch the show, which a lot of people haven't done because, again, it's impossible to find. Even with warnings, it's impossible to find. I only got it given it by a guy from uni whose black, from North London, whose mom grew up loving that show, and she had it on DVD and lent it to me because I'd heard about it but never seen it.
Yeah,
this is the point, that you got a native black woman from one of the Windrush generation who grew up with that show, who loved it because it wasn't the white man being superior. The white man was the moron most of the time, and they called but from both sides of the fence, they called each other all kinds of heinous shit, as you can imagine, being the 70s. But more than likely, they end up in the pub together at the end of the episode every week. Because that's what it was. It was a statement.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, oh yeah, let's just be racist for the sake of it. It was using it as a plot point and their kind of interpersonal relationship between each other. Because that's how they dealt with it. They were just bantering each other because of race. It wasn't racist. It was a comment on what they were doing and the society at the time. But again, we can't do that, can we? Because everyone's too sensitive now. And I think that...
Trusted, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's why Fawlty Towers came back with a fucking warning on it when it didn't come back the first time. Which, again, I'd rather have a warning on things than them not be able to be watched.
Yeah.
Which is, I suppose, fine. But if you look at all the other stuff...
You should be able to understand these things, like media literacy is in the toilet.
Yeah. You look at the
many times you see people talk about Alf Garnett and stuff like that.
I was just going to say Alf Garnett.
Yeah. Like, I saw this one on Twitter talking about Alf Garnett, saying, oh, he's right because of, women belong in the kitchen. Like, do you not understand that he's taking the piss out of you? His character saying that, taking the piss out of the people who believe it.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't think that people quite get satire. And I think that's a bit of an issue with some of these shows.
I think the biggest thing with that is Warren Mitchell was a Spurs fan.
Yeah.
And Alf Garnett, a notorious West Ham fan. The whole point of
West Ham fan. Yeah.
The whole point of it is it's not real. It's in comment on things, and like you throw other things in there. I mean, like the whole Some Mothers Do Have It. I've only watched a few of them, to be fair. And again, you giggle along. But the case in point, I've been to, I'd probably say a good 10 live Roy Chubby Brown shows. And people hate him. Fine. Whatever. It's comedy. It's not for everyone. But unless you've been to them shows and you don't see the demographic of what's there, at least a third of his audience are either Asian or black. Half are women. None of this is reported on ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I've seen it for myself. I've been there. It's piss funny. It's not real life. Everyone goes home happy. And it's the same with everything. Just because what he says is awful. Because a lot of times it is, but that's the point. That's why it's funny. Because it is awful. But if you're going to be oversensitive about things, then don't fucking watch it. Just don't watch it. It's a hard. But you don't try and get things cancelled for other people because you're offended. It's like the whole thing's just baffling. Because if you watch it and some of the stuff, he'd never have been married for as long as he has been if he hated women. He'd have been killed 20, 30 years ago if he was racist. But it's not. It's a fucking act. That's all it is. And actually...
Yeah, I agree.
Jethro as well. You throw in Jethro, and obviously you can go the other way, like Bernard Manning, who was a cunt.
Yeah.
But that is when you are being the person you are on stage. There's a difference.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a reason that one of them still toured and one got left behind quite quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. And I sent you that clip Jimmy Carr was talking about. He's probably already told the joke that will get him cancelled. And when they come and ask him about being cancelled, his response will be very curt, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you." And then they will obviously say you're being insincere. And his response is, "So you do understand that what you say isn't necessarily what you mean?" Like, that's sort of the nutshell of comedy, isn't it?
Yeah.
That these things don't necessarily mean what is being said. There is stuff behind it. There are layers to jokes. And I just worry that a lot of people, maybe it's just Twitter, I don't know, because it is very much a bubble unto itself. But I do worry that those terminally online people don't quite understand that not everything is as face value as they like to make out, I think.
Yeah.
So there was the joke, like Frankie Boyle, big fan of Frankie Boyle, brilliant. He told the joke about, I'm not going to say the N-word, but he says, he talks about phoning the Ministry of Defence and they refer to it as the Department for Bombing N-words, which was a term that they used in the war to describe it because of it, obviously Churchill, what he did in parts of Africa, blah, 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 all that. It was very much a point was being made when he said it, and they tried to cancel him for that. But then when he says other things that, like, there's a joke about Jordan's son, that was just a joke about a disabled boy. Like, it wasn't anywhere near as nuanced as I think he tried to make it out. And people completely sort of ignored that. But the other one was bad because it said a word that we're not allowed to say. And it's those lines that I think people don't quite understand sort of how to work them, if I'm honest. I feel a little bit old man shouts a cloud with this, but I do think it is genuinely an issue with modern comedy being a little bit too sanitised because of it.
Well, that's what when we get to it, I ain't watched really anything for years because it's not funny anymore. I don't find it funny. It's just, it's boring. It's awful. And everything's done by committee and it has to pass all these checks and everything. Well, it's not going to be funny at the end of that, is it? It's just, it's one of these things. It's almost like, well, okay, so we can have plays, we can have songs, we can have games, we can have films. But if you're a stand-up comedian and you tell a story, well, that's then real life.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's a story. It's a story. It's something that's made up. They haven't actually gone and found up the Ministry of Defence, have they?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's outrageous. You've got to be some kind of thicko to actually believe this stuff. And the line is there that people don't necessarily understand that comedy is storytelling. I don't know. It's bizarre.
Yeah. I think you made a good point just about the people running it. So Lucy Beaumont, stand-up comedian who, I don't know if you know Lucy, she was in Meet the Richardsons. She's married to John Richardson. Sadly, they're getting divorced, but she wrote Meet the Richardsons. And she tweeted the other day, which I did share with you in the group chat. I met a woman in a pub and she said, "Why do you never see people like me in sitcoms?" I said, "You do. They just get turned down. We focused for years on issue-based, London-based, middle class, that we've literally lost a generation of working-class comedy makers. I get people saying, I watch only Old Fools and Horses because modern sitcoms aren't funny. That show was massively working class and the writer and crew and the actors all working class. It was about not having money and every 3 lines was a gag. It was truthful and slapstick. Nothing will change until TV commissioners and controllers are from working class backgrounds outside of London. We veer off into diversity, but ultimately the money swings back. into making shows that appeal to the lives of London-based creatives. It's not even intentional. I think she makes a really good point throughout all of that. That it's, when I say diversity, I don't mean a diversity on screen. I mean diversity of creators. Because so much of it is very much white middle class, aiming at a very specific audience. The diversity comes because they feel that they have quotas to meet. So they push that onto it. So you will end up with diversity on screen, but not necessarily in creatives. So I feel like there's not much of a variation of stories. Thankfully, we've got a few, like Michaela Cole's coming through. I May Have to Destroy You and stuff like that, which is really interesting. And it's a different voice that we're getting to hear. But that gets buried on the iPlayer, or it might be like fucking midnight on BBC Two. But you don't get to see these shows prime time on BBC. And I do think that needs to change. We do need more people of colour writing. We do need more people in these creative roles who don't just look like me and you, Stu. And I think that'd be a much more interesting world of comedy if we did get that.
I think it's so much looking like me and you. It's more being like me and you, and not having 70 grand in the bank as a backup. I think that's what kind of that Lucy woman's saying, that you look at it and you think that every single thing has got, from a comedy point of view, has got the touchdowns, the beats to meet, and then,
yeah.
I mean, that would be a sitcom in itself. Rearrange them words. But yeah, exactly, you say that, Anthony, you'd be cancelled straight away. But yeah, I think she has got a point though, because everything is that kind of what people think, what writers think people want themselves to be. This kind of upper lower class, lower middle class kind of 2 cars, 3-bedroom house, the ideal, the British sewer dream, or whatever you want to call it. But it's not. And then you go down the opposite route, like we get every single Christmas, where every advert has got black people in, and then there's faux outrage because why? Well, where are all these adverts being made? London. What is the vast majority of people, the breakdown of people's colour in London, where these pink things are made? Well, if you look at the demographic of people down there, it's black. So it's not representative of the entire country. And this is a major, major problem. It's not just colour or whatever. It's about class. It's about not everything not being in London. I think they did the right thing moving stuff to Salford, however you want to say. That's a nice step. And not having everything down there. But it's going to take years. And she's right, a whole generation's gone because of this nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting take. And yeah, brilliant. I mean, we spent a lot longer talking about that than I completely envisioned we were going to be talking about. Right, we'll move on anyway. So I've broke it down. So the first part that I was going to talk about was the 1990s and comedy in the 90s. And, I was looking at the list of comedies through the 90s, and it's all over the place. Like, there's no sort of defined through when it comes to comedy in the 90s. So just like a list of some of the shows that it's got on. When I type in 90s comedy, British, on Google, Game On, Keeping Up Appearances, Bottom, Men Behaving Badly, League of Gentlemen, Spaced, Vicar of Dibley, The Royal Family, Brass Eye, Father Ted. All of those, you can't say there's a lot of things in common between a lot of those shows. And it kind of feels like that's how the 90s was going. Gimme, Gimme, Gimme's on there, the Mrs. Merton show. The 90s comedy just feels like it's a real hodgepodge of, we don't know what we are, so we're just going to be everything to everybody. And I found that really kind of great, because no matter what you're into, there was probably a show for you. And I think that's awesome. But goodness gracious me, that must have been one of the first Asian-run TV shows that I can recall.
Yeah,
I genuinely, I can't, even today, I really struggle to think of anything that is primarily based around Asian families. So, it genuinely did have something for everybody back in the 90s. That, as we've just discussed about London bias, I feel like we've lost that a little bit now.
You look at that. I mean, every single one of them that you just listed, I've watched. and I liked most of them. Then there's a few. I mean, Gimme was. I watched it. I didn't love it as like I did some of the others, but Vicar of Dibley was superb. And that bit,
I'm the other way round. Like, I watched Vicar of Dibley, but I love Gimme. I love Kathy Burke.
Yeah,
like, I'd love to meet Kathy Burke. She's one of my favourite people. She's awesome. So I like Gimme.
I mean, Kathy Burke I mean, we can put that at Kevin and Perry Go Large as a watch along one week.
Yeah,
I think that was 2000 though, maybe.
I think it was.
So I remember having the CD, the soundtrack, and the soundtrack was excellent. But yeah, all of them, all of the, and I know you put it there, the women on TV, and it was things like Birds of a Feather, which I didn't like then, but then watching it again on Gold, I got a lot more. It seems a lot more sensible, a lot more grown up than some of the other stuff.
Yeah, I was definitely too young to appreciate it then. And like some of the jokes that Doreen, the next door neighbour, like all the saucy jokes that probably didn't quite understand them back then, but now like, you do appreciate that different style of comedy. So yeah, I'd said about Birds of a Feather, Victoria Wood, French and Saunders being sort of like the driving force, or having a driving force in the 90s that I don't think really had much of a voice pre-1990. Like a lot of the stuff we spoke about last week was all very much male-driven comedy, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I do think the comic strip group changed that. Well, they were all in it, weren't they? So
yeah,
it's a team up between all of them at the same time, and then them lot come through in the late 80s, these come through in the early 90s. So it does kind of make sense in a way. But what was Dinner Ladies later?
That was 98. That was the first season was 98. So it was a show that I probably didn't quite appreciate, but having seen it back, it is genius. Like Victoria Wood, I definitely didn't appreciate in her time, but watching it back now and watching some of her live shows and was fantastic. I kind of regret not appreciating it back then.
The songs and everything that she did, like, I mean, that's a live stuff more than anything else, but the little ditties that were all perfect. It was just clever.
Yeah. There's the one, so have you ever seen the one with, it's got David Tennant and Catherine Tate doing it to Doctor Who for Russell T Davies? So it's, what's the name of the song? It's the famous song that Victoria Wood did. And they re-recorded it, so to speak, but they changed the words to be about Russell T Davies bringing Doctor Who back. Let's do it.
Yeah,
let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah. They changed it, but replaced with Russell T Davies in there. It's on YouTube. It's worth a watch. And there is a video of Catherine Tate singing the original version of it, because I think she was a massive Victoria Wood fan. Also, Catherine Tate is a person who I think we probably would never have got had it not been for the 90s giving or letting women sort of take the run with some of these shows. Like, I do feel like French and Saunders kind of feels like the first female-driven show that I could particularly, especially in the comedy world.
Yeah.
That it was all based around them and their other female mates. And they're excellent as well, watching the parodies of some of the films. So on Twitter earlier, Monty Don had tweeted us saying about her favourite clip is the parody of Silence of the Lambs. And she shared the clip, and they've put it side by side of when Jennifer Saunders walks into the room to see Dawn French in the prison cell. And they put it side by side, and it is, and like, it looks exact. The way they're stood, the cuts, the beats of everything looks perfect. How they've done it. How on earth did you make a parody of Silence of the Lambs? Just brilliant.
Yeah,
I really like French and Saunders. I think I've got a lot of time for both of them. And they've both gone on to do, like you say, they've done their own things. They've done Vicar of Dibley and Ab Fab. They've had their own career apart from each other, but they'll still always be connected.
I mean, both of them were in one of the Poirot films as well. with Kenneth Branagh.
Were they really?
Yeah, the Death on the Nile. They're in that one.
Okay.
Both of them again together.
Like, there's always that call to have both of them together, isn't there? I don't think they'll ever escape it. It's been 30 years since it sort of started for them, but they'll always be French and Saunders. They should change their name to like Dawn French and Saunders and Jennifer French and Saunders, I think, because that's what they're always going to be known as.
Yeah.
But Ab Fab's another one that I probably didn't appreciate at the time, but again, he's a brilliant film. The fact that 2016 they made a movie of Absolutely Fabulous. All these years later, and there was still a call to have a film about it, is just incredible, really. I never would have thought that it would have had the legs that it has, but I think there is a generation of people out there who love those characters.
Yeah, and that is the complete opposite of what we were saying earlier, but it just works. That they are people who are, you're talking about high fashion and something that people have got nothing in common with, but they're so stupid and so moronic that you've got that in common with them rather than the actual situation that they find themselves in. And is it Nadia Sawalha, the other one?
Yeah.
And even her, when she was in the Time Gentleman Please, which was the Al Murray sitcom years later.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I saw it in that first because I never watched Ab Fab. So when I realised that she'd actually been in, because she was playing an Aussie barmaid in that, was she? And going back afterwards, again probably on Gold or whatever it was called then, and watching Ab Fab, I think, yeah, this is actually really good. And I used to walk at, I mean, bearing in mind, what was that, late 90s, so teenage, skinny blonde teenage boy, not necessarily wanting to watch Absolutely Fabulous around your nan's house on a Friday and Saturday night.
Yeah.
Especially when there's other things to do. We've talked about the catalogues before. But no, I never got it at the time either. But I'm glad again, hopefully people can go back and try these things properly. Because there's nothing, I can't imagine there's anything bad in there really, other than maybe a few like throwaway comments, but it was harmless fun, but two pissheads, which is always funny.
Yeah, it was. It's weird because those two characters are cultural icons, I think. Like, people still sort of kind of want to grow up to be Adina and Patsy, to grow old gracefully. Like, people love them, and it's really odd to think. So yeah, 1992 was the first episode, and the last episode was 2012. Only 39 episodes over a 20-year span, but it is absolutely adored. And June Whitfield, as well as Adina's mother, she was absolutely fantastic in that. And Jane Horrocks as well, as Bubble, the assistant. Just a tremendous show, really was. So yeah, the other one that I'd put on the list, Birds of a Feather, as you say. So the pair of those sort of, they always feel like they're a little bit intertwined, even though I don't know that they ever worked in anything again together. I don't know, but it feels like those are a pair of actors who'll always be together.
Other than in Bermondsey Tales from a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I was just trying to remember Bermondsey Tales was Linda Robinson makes a random appearance. Linda Robinson, Pauline Quirk. Again, they feel like they'll always be intertwined just off the back of that one show. Now, it says here, I'm looking at Pauline Quirk, 128 episodes from 1989 to 2017.
Yeah,
episodes in the 17s, didn't they?
It came back a little bit, yeah.
Wow, I did not know that. But just the fact that it came back all those years later is like a testament to how much that show was loved.
Yeah.
On December 24th, 2020, there was an episode.
Christmas special.
Celebrating the holidays during COVID. That's news to me, that one is.
No, I've never seen that one. No, I don't.
Les Dennis was in that one.
Oh, of course he was.
Incredible. No, I don't remember that one. But apparently it was on TV. Amazing. Moving on a little bit. So this is sort of the late 90s into the 2000s, this era. I've got down Armando Iannucci and the Rise of Satire. Obviously, Armando Iannucci, I think he's probably best known for I'm Alan Partridge. I think that's the one that really sort of shot him to fame. Even though obviously he doesn't star in it, he's the brains behind it. He's one of the brains behind Partridge. Are you a Partridge fan? I don't know if you've ever had a Partridge discussion before, Stu.
We've talked about it on Fancast a few times, but yes, very much so. I have not listened to the audiobooks though. They were kind of been saved for a rainy day, but that rainy day's never come so far. And again, the fact that I'm sure I put that clip in when they were talking on Kind of Funny Day a few months ago, where our good friend, well, wanted friend, Raoul Coley, mentioned Alan Partridge, and they had no idea what he was talking about at all. And he's like, yeah.
Which is mad, because I feel like of any of the things that we've spoke about, I feel like Alan Partridge could probably cross over into the States.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I feel like he's probably the easiest one to market outside of the UK.
But there was him and Lucy James, I think she works for GameSpot, and they were doing like the back of the net and all, like little one-liners to each other and giggling, and they were like, everyone else was just sitting around and I don't know what's happening. I don't know what any of this means.
I suppose if you don't know it is weird as anything, isn't it? Because the jokes aren't jokey, they're just random things said. It's just really bizarre when you think about it.
Yeah. I mean, even the thing, like the One Show rip-off a few years ago, that wouldn't work with anyone else.
No, it absolutely wouldn't. And the thing with that One Show rip-off is, that is the one show to people. Like, I don't feel like they had to stretch to make comedy, because the comedy's already there. And I think that's what's so good about Partridge, is that he isn't reaching for a joke. The joke is just what is already there. He's just making very, very obvious observations that are kind of ridiculous. And that's why he works so perfectly. What did you think of the film, the Partridge film? I know that's not Armando Iannucci, but did you enjoy that?
It was fine. I kind of went in not expecting much from it, really, because we've had these things before where we've had films of TV show. Like Ali G in the House was not as good as the series. So I didn't have my hopes up, but I giggled a few times, and it was a nice, enjoyable couple of hours, however long it was, and it was nothing special, but I wasn't as critical as a lot of people were on it at the time.
Yeah, because it did get a bit of a kick in, because I feel like that it is an issue with a lot of shows turned to TVs, that it works on TV because it's a half-hour thing, and then when they try to stretch it out, it feels like it's still a half-hour thing. They've just made it 90 minutes. But I still really enjoyed Partridge, because I like everything about Partridge. I don't think I've seen anything of his work that I haven't thought he's great. And I like Steve Coogan in general anyway. I enjoy all of his work. So I do think he's unfairly criticised. But you do need to get onto his audiobook / podcasts. They are fantastic. Fucking absurd, but really funny. Yeah, you will like them when you do them eventually.
I mean, how long are they?
So I think probably about 6 hours, between 6 and 8 hours. And there's 3 seasons of it. So, like, they're not massively long. Season 2 is 4.5 hours. Season 1 is 6 hours 44. Why is it not got a time against? It doesn't tell me what the time is on season 3. But again, we're looking at around between 4 and 6 hours, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I mean, they're not
massively long.
I mean, that's only an away trip, really.
And they're episodic, so he's recorded it like a podcast. They just sell it as an audiobook. So you'll find there'll be 6, 7, 8 episodes.
Well, yeah. I'm like, you know what? That sounds perfect for some beach walking time in the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll be enjoying yourself, chuckling along while listening to From the Host House. It's super. So, like, still sticking with Armando Iannucci. What about The Thick of It? Did you watch much of that?
I love the thick of it.
I think The Thick of It is probably my favourite sitcom of the 2000s. I think it's absolutely superb. Again, possibly didn't understand it initially because it's very, very dense in the political world, especially in the first season before Nicola Murray joins. I think it's a very, very dense TV show. But once the humour clicks with you, I think it's superb. Mostly because, again, much like Partridge, they're not jokes what they're doing.
No.
They are just literally what we're experiencing where we see politics from the outside.
They're not, yeah. And it's not all just about the swearing, is it? This is
It's not. No, it's not.
like you look at it and you think, okay, fine. This is what gets brought up all the time and all this kind of thing. But again, I didn't watch it at the time because I had no interest in politics and all that stuff. And certain things in 2020 changed that. So when we had a lot of time on our hands, I went back and watched it then. And I think I probably enjoyed it a lot more for that reason as well. But you look at it and you think, yeah, these people really are inept. They have no idea what they're doing. And again, it's so true to form. Well, for what you expect and what you imagine is form, is the truth anyway. And yeah, loved it. And I get why people don't like it. It is, like you said, it is very dense and you have got to have a modicum of knowledge. I think that's kind of why a lot of people didn't get House of Cards.
Mm-hmm.
It's very American.
Yeah.
And if you don't not up for the Senate and all that kind of stuff, and not the Senate from Phantom Menace. Again, well, yeah, that's a point though. When we watched Phantom Menace back then, did you have any idea what all that was on about?
Not a sausage. I barely understand it now because it's fucking awful. But yeah, there was too much of it. Like it was so densely layered of utter garbage that it made it very difficult to understand anything else beyond it.
And they had Chinese accents as well.
Yeah, I mean that was just bordering onto racism. People know were doing.
That's saying that.
Yeah, it was questionable, wasn't it? Let's be honest. But yeah, I mean, Malcolm Tucker, I think he's one of the great characters. I know obviously the sweariness of it and everything does make him quite memeable, but he was very funny beyond that as well. Like he was a very good character. And the delivery of the lines by Peter Capaldi. Capaldi was so good. I was so excited when he was announced as the 12th Doctor. I thought he was a great choice, all because of Malcolm Tucker.
And him being a super fan as well. So he knows what it meant. And you could tell.
Yeah, absolutely. I would be more than happy to see him return. I know we've had like Tennant come back, but I'd be more than happy for more Capaldi as well. Brilliant. Did you see In the Loop, the film that was sort of loosely associated? It had Malcolm Tucker in it, but all of the other characters. So Ollie was Chris Addison's character. He was playing somebody else. That's a good film. You should watch that. Because it's basically the thick of it on the big screen, and James Gandolfini is in it as well.
No.
So, yeah, it's very funny, very good. You'd enjoy that. So there's the one scene, this isn't a massive spoiler because they announced it when it went out. Because basically a British politician ends up going to America to talk to their Senate. And he talks about being in a hotel room trying to wank to Shark Week, because he didn't want to have a porno on his hotel bill. And then that film was released, and at the same time, I can't remember the politician, but her husband had ordered pay-per-view porn in a hotel in the UK. So it was like, that's going on the big screen, and that's what's actually happening in real life. It's baffling the number of things that have happened on the thick of it that have then been mirrored in actual politics. And I think that's why it's the perfect satire, because you don't know if it's real or if it's comedy, because it could be either quite easily.
A bit like Black Mirror with the pig, and then David Cameron and the pig.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, there's been a few come out of Black Mirror where all of a sudden it's happened in real life. It's like it's getting close to the Simpsons level of predicting the future. It's incredible. Go back a little bit on Iannucci's work. So he was a creator on The Day to Day. Did you ever watch The Day to Day with Chris Morris?
Sometimes I didn't want. It was one of them where I didn't get it. I didn't get it at the time. I know what you're going to lead on to with Brass Eye, which I did very much get.
Yeah.
But yeah, The Day to Day, no, it was a bit before my. Well, it is satire. It's like world understanding, I suppose you could say. It was just, I mean, like watching Have I Got News for You. Just didn't understand, didn't get it.
Yeah, like the current news stuff. When you're a child, which we would have been, I mean, Have I Got News for You started in 1990. So probably before 2003, I probably wouldn't have got any of the jokes on that. And The Day to Day felt very similar because it was jokes about, not about what was actually going on, but making jokes about what could go on. I should say, like, it is satire. And I got a little bit lost in it. It wasn't until sort of like, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago that I watched The Day to Day and actually understood the jokes. So obviously that was where Partridge got his first on-screen credit as well. I'm sure that's the first appearance of Alan Partridge because he did some radio stuff on the Day to Day radio show before that. But yeah, that leads on then to Chris Morris. And I think that might have been like his big break because he then went on to do Brass Eye, which is probably like the premier piss take of contemporary news. It was just an absolutely outstanding piece of work that, I mean, in my meme folder, I've got at least 3 different memes that are all Brass Eye. You know, the nonsense one with what's his name, Phil Collins. That always comes up. There's the Richard Blackwood. There's Gary Lineker who did it as well. There's so many of these people who just got caught out saying about, was it cake was a made-up fruit. Fucking Bernard Manning was one of the people who was talking about cake being a made-up drug and saying it with like his whole fucking chest, not realising that he's literally saying that it is made up. Just superb work that still holds up today as well, I think.
And I had the one for ages with the when they're in the is it some kind of fete or something where they've got everyone dressed up and you got a paedophile dressed as a school. Yes.
Oh God. And it's the one where they're talking about AIDS, the AIDS epidemic. And he's talking to the guy and he says about him having the good AIDS because he got it from a transfusion, from the blood transfusion. He said, no, I got it from my boyfriend. And he's like, so you've got the bad AIDS? Like, how on earth did this ever get to you? And it's absolutely hilarious. I think that is one of the best shows that, again, probably very few people ever saw.
Yeah. It
kind of got buried. It was a Channel 4 one that was late night, midweek, that I don't think anyone knew of.
Well, there was another one that is a little bit shows that got buried. I mean, I did write down a few things. I mean, did you ever watch Ideal?
Yes, that was Johnny Vegas.
Yeah, Johnny Vegas, yeah.
That was good, that was.
It felt like only about a handful of people ever watched it or even talked about it. He's there as a ridiculous... He's a bad drug dealer, isn't he? In his terrible, sad life.
Wasn't it on like on BBC Play or something like that originally? Yeah. It even predated BBC Three, if I remember right.
Yeah, Choice Play.
It was good. Yeah, that was Choice. It could have been that one.
Yeah, there's a few of them, like Catterick as well.
He loved Catterick. I mean, it's Vic and Bob, isn't it? But
yeah,
that was a fantastic show. I'll watch anything with Vic and Bob in there.
But there was one more that I found. We haven't mentioned, obviously. We talked about Ricky Gervais enough times. We don't need to talk about them. They're both good if you like it. If not,
whatever. Yeah, I mean, The Office and Extras, I'll stand up against anything. I think they're fantastic.
But the Boosh?
Yeah. I mean, I did a rewatch of The Mighty Boosh not that long ago. Season 3 still shit, but season 1 and 2 are, yeah, I love them. Yeah, I'm a big fan of season 1 and 2. I did see a video the other day of Noel Fielding saying about how they will probably get back together at some point. Like they keep giving each other flirty eyes, like, shall we get back together? And it probably will happen at some point, but I hope they do, because I would like to see another, even if it's just another, 1 hour special. I would be more than happy just for that. I did love Mighty Boosh.
Well, if he was
hair like Vince Noir.
He was too old to be doing it even then, wasn't he, really? The other one.
He was. Yeah, Julie.
But you wait and give it another 10 years, they're like, coming up to their 60s, and you think, well, it's even more ridiculous now. We've done like mod walls. But did you watch the live show at the Civic when it came? I know, was it the Grand? Was it the Grand?
Was it the Grand?
I can't remember. I know it was. No, it was at the Civic. I was just on the side at the top. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the second live show they did, which I saw at the Civic. I saw the first live show on DVD, which was great. I didn't love the second live show, because if I remember rightly, the second live show was just a concert. Like, there was no comedy beats. It was just their character would come out and sing a song. I didn't love that one, but I did love the first live show that I never got to see live, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was a special kind of strange, that was. Because obviously you got people... That show being sold out here, and everyone knowing everything, and you're looking around and you think, yeah, have you people been outside before? Because it's very niche in its own right, and people were all sitting there a bit awkward, like they didn't know what to do. And But again, as soon as it started, it's, oh yeah, no one cares. It's just...
Yeah.
You're pissing yourself from start to finish.
I suppose there's one other sitcom that should probably be mentioned in the noughties. Gavin and Stacey. Yeah, that's kind of my reaction. I didn't hate the first season. The first season was okay, but it felt like it was dragged out, like, well beyond its depth. It doesn't help that he's an insufferable prick as well. That's by the by, I suppose.
I thought I was going to be hung, drawn, and quartered the other week when they're talking about it. Was it a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a month?
Yeah,
whatever. It was when they announced that it was coming back for one last hurrah, and they were talking about it on the cast. Said, "Oh, did you watch? I watched one episode, didn't like it. Then I tried again, didn't like it for the second time. And the third time around, I got 3 episodes in. I thought, this is just never going to happen. Don't get it. Whatever, if people like it, but it's really just not for me. And it was almost like universal hatred of me because I didn't like Gavin and Stacey. I thought, I don't really care. I'm never going to go to Barry Island. I got no need to like this show. James Corden's in it, which is unfortunate, but still. It's just not for me. Just don't get it. So it's just one of them. I know it's beloved, and I know we talk about Mrs. Bread's Boys, and there's obviously an audience for this stuff. But no, not for me.
You know what? I didn't particularly love. I've seen all of them because it was on, but I didn't love it. It felt like a lot of the jokes were, he's from London, she's from Wales.
Yeah,
isn't that weird? They're from these two strange places. And no, there is. But did like I do like oh god, Uncle Bryn, who was played by Rob Brydon. Like, I like Rob Brydon in pretty much anything. So I enjoyed him in that, but that's because I like Rob Brydon, I think. Like, if you've ever seen The Trip with Brydon and Coogan.
Yeah.
Versions of, like, that's fucking superb. That's absolutely excellent. But yeah, there wasn't enough Brydon in it to make me want to see more Gavin and Stacey ever again.
There was another one like it as well that people loved. It was the big woman. She's just,
Miranda.
Yeah, that's the one.
No, Miranda is just a middle-class version of Mrs. Brown's Boys.
I mean, I'm not being horrible. She's like 6 foot tall. She's massive.
Oh yeah, she's fucking tall as anything. Yeah, she's, yeah. But no, rubbish. I didn't get the humour in that whatsoever, but yet that was loved. You know what? I mean, you might dislike me for saying this, but Gavin and Stacey is just the millennials' Only Fools and Horses. It's just a really broad sitcom that appeals to... Like, you can't watch it and say you hate it because the jokes are just there for everybody and anyone can pick up and play. That's what I think Gavin and Stacey is, because it's just Only Fools and Horses for the next set of people of that age, and it just didn't mean anything to me.
Well, because people were watching that and we were watching Booch, and there was it's probably finished. I mean, they might be dead now. I don't know. What was it called? There's a show on. It was on iPlayer later on, but we had to used to get it. It was like in the middle of the night, so we had to torrent it because we couldn't find it. It was two old Scottish blokes.
Rapsy Nesbitt.
No, yeah. Rapsy Nesbitt was great. Rapsy Nesbitt was what I thought Scottish people were like.
I've been to Scotland, and yeah, they are. Is it Still Game?
Yes, Still Game. That's the one. That is superb. Again, no one's seen it. No one's ever seen it.
Apparently, it's on Netflix.
Oh, there you are. Put that on your roster then straight away. You'll love Still Game.
It looks vaguely familiar, but I don't think I've seen it. They're not old people, though, are they? They're people pretending to be old people by the looks of it.
I mean, you're talking a good 20 years ago.
Yeah, I don't. Ford Kiernan, he's 62 now. The other one's 54 now, so yeah, they wouldn't have been old people then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it rings a bell, but I can't quite place it. I'll have to have a look for that one. Still Game. Oh, I suppose as well, one last one. Not really my kind of comedy, but Little Britain was absolutely huge until it was, despised, I think. And it was quite a quick turnaround, wasn't it, as well? I think it took a season to bed in. Second season was massive. Third season was get this shit off my TV.
It just died. It just did. It was almost like the joke ran its course. And it was great until it was boring and the same. And I think that happened to Bo Selector as well. It was brilliant and new and fresh and different. Oh, obviously that's not new, but it hadn't been done for a long time. Let's just say that with Little Britain.
Yeah, sketch comedy when that was released felt like it was, we hadn't seen sketch comedy for decades at that point.
Yeah.
So for something to have broke through like that, it did feel new.
Yeah, so you were there.
Because every single sketch, every Lou and Andy sketch was, I want that one. Every single one of them was that joke, or you'd get up and run around, and you had just ping pong and ting tong. It was that exact. Like the joke was, she's Korean. That's not a joke, mate. That's a nationality.
Well,
there wasn't enough variation, was there?
I'm a lady. I had them. I had it on UMD. That's it. Which
okay.
Is I watched it non-stop on my PSP back in the day, for trips all over the country. I loved it, but it just got the joke got old. You can say that the joke got old after the first season, and it would have ended. It would have been a classic because they were just catchphrases, weren't they? The whole thing with the whole point of the show, they were catchphrases, and how they're going to get the catchphrase is going to manifest themselves in these situations this week. That was what it was.
That's such a tenuous thing to build a show on, isn't it?
Yeah, and it worked. It worked until it didn't, and they died. And then you had the other one, which was it almost like they were doing it on purpose with "Come Fly With Me."
I struggled through one episode. I thought that was dreadful.
Yeah, I didn't like that one. But again, it felt too forced, and it almost felt too soon after Little Britain finished. In a way, if they did it now just to cause chaos, it'd be hilarious because it's been so long. But I don't think anyone would have the bottle to do it. Not on BBC anyway.
Did you ever watch Rock Profiles?
Yeah.
I loved Rock Profiles. That I thought was a fantastic show, and like I've seen bits of it on YouTube and it's still very funny because that doesn't really rely on catchphrases as such like the others do. I feel like Little Britain killed catchphrase comedy for me. Like I can't watch anything where that they stick a catchphrase in there because of Little Britain. I think
because Rock Profile seemed to be on at the same day as Celebrity Deathmatch on MTV.
Yeah. They did, like, I think that they would just have an hour like pretty much every other night where it would just be comedy stuff, and they'd always stick that on there. But I really liked that, and that's why I can't listen to the Bee Gees without thinking of the Cowardly Lion from Wizard of Oz. Like in my mind, the lion one is always the main Bee Gee. So I always think of that, and Shirley Bassey and Tom Jones. He hasn't got the range, darling. Every time. Just. It's such a shame that their careers went the way they did, because it felt like comedy isn't for them anymore as a duo.
No.
Because I find David Walliams unwatchable. He makes my skin crawl. I'm not entirely sure why. Whereas I do like Lucas. Obviously he's George Dawes. Again, he's probably the Vic and Bob connection that makes me still love Lucas a little bit.
Yeah.
So the last bit, so this one started in the noughties, but it did carry on into the tens. The In-Betweeners. The very first episode of The In-Betweeners I saw, I did not like it. I thought this is needlessly crude. This is silly. It's not particularly funny. I don't want to see this. And then I watched another episode. Actually, it's fucking brilliant. Like, I turned around so quickly. It was literally 20 minutes. No, never again. 40 minutes. Okay, I'm on your team. Let's watch this. And then I watched everything several times. It's become something of a comfort show, I think. I've got to assume you're a big fan of The In-Betweens. It feels like your kind of humour.
From the first minute of it, yeah, you're spot on. And I think with this one, it was almost like, because that's what my group of people kind of were. We weren't the cool sporty kids. We weren't the super nerds. We were that middle band who kind of, but we never picked on that. We just left to our own voices, because we had like a foot in both camps, but we never crossed the boundary into either. So we were in between us more than anything else. And it is so relatable to it. I mean, you have got the compulsive liar who's boasting about things he's obviously never done, but convinces himself that he has. You have got the nerdy one. You have got the one who's a bit taller than everyone else and a bit lanky, which is what I was.
Yeah.
And then you have the sensitive bookworm kind. It ticks every box properly, and we all lived through that. And I think the fact that it was 10 years removed from us leaving school, it's still within that thing. But even saying that, everyone loved it. So even if you had left school 30, 40 years ago, like my parents and my uncle had, they were still like, yeah, that's it. That's exactly what it's like, isn't it? They've nailed this. Well, yeah. School kind of changed that much in that time.
It is easily recognisable. So the first season was 2008. So I know I left in 99, you left school in 2000. So college years would have been, 2002-ish would have been by the time we were leaving. So we are looking at probably like 6 years out from that college. But yeah, absolutely recognise these characters from my own life completely. And it, like, some of the criticisms that get levelled at it sort of feel a little unfair, if I'm honest. Looking at the, it gets accused of being too crude and stuff. But then I think I probably said worse about than like what was being said on this when I was that age. Because that's what schoolboys are like. It is, as you said, it's very, very identifiable to us. So the criticisms of it are that it's just too close to real life almost, which feels disingenuous.
it's almost like finding criticisms for something that's so popular and so relatable that these toffs who are reviewing it have no relatability to it because, like Lucy Woman said earlier on, it's written by people in the real world and not out.
Yeah.
Well, the real world to the vast majority of the country, put it that way. And I think that's what a lot of this is because they have no in with this because I'm guessing that private schools do not act like this and you don't get bus wankers and all that kind of stuff. And the fact that it's turned itself into, you see every single day GIFs and memes of it every day. Completely out of context of what it originally came from. Again, I like the GIF of you. But it is, it's so woven into everything because it was so popular. And I think you're saying that the Gavin and Stacey was only fools and us. I think this has got a chance of being it now because it's kind of, if you take it, if you rewind back and we had this stuff in the early 90s, falling through the bar, chandelier falling from the ceiling, that'd be gift out straight away.
Yeah, that's fair, to be honest. I think it was.
But the in-betweeners, like the fact that they didn't fuck up either of the films and they were brilliant.
Yeah. Like, the second one's not... Like, I don't think the second one's brilliant. I think the second one's good. But I don't watch either of them and think, oh, this is unwatchable, like I have done with other TV shows to films. Like, they both stand up and they're both watchable, enjoyable films. Another criticism, the portrayal of women, apparently. So it says that the female characters are often portrayed as objects of the boys' desires or as an obstacle to get their goals. Critics argued that the show perpetuated sexist stereotypes and failed to provide well-rounded, realistic portrayals of female characters. This led to accusations of misogyny and a lack of balance in representing gender dynamics. So I feel these criticisms sort of miss the point a little bit because I know that we have 4 white male characters that are leading the charge of this TV show. I know as someone who was of a similar age, who was a 17-year-old boy, the majority of my friendship group was people who sort of look like me. That's how it works. Like, you tend to cluster around people you recognise, don't you, I think? And that's all this show really did. I feel like if they went and had, like, the female of the group, it could have added something where it just felt like they were doing it for the sake of it, the TV show. I feel like the criticisms are that this was just too real a portrayal of college life, if I'm being perfectly honest. So it feels a little bit disingenuous, the criticisms, for me.
Yeah, and it goes back to the same thing as earlier, that they're trying to force things by committee, tick things off the boxes, when if you go back to that time, we had Javin, we had Harpreet, is there anyone else? There's a couple of girls. Everyone else was white. Because it was England in the late 90s, early 2000s. That's what it was like. Maybe not in London, again, maybe not in London where all these reviewers are. This is, again, the problem. Because the vast majority of the country back then was white. And it kind of still is. But I was walking home from work today, going past one of the high schools, which is now an academy, like they all are. But it's probably about 50-50 with white kids, black kids. Who cares? Yeah. If you make it now, that's what it'll be. But back in 2008, it was mostly white boys talking amongst white boys. The ones you had the odd, which were minorities, in number form. I mean, Harp's one of my best friends. He is. He always has been. He was never a problem for us. But he didn't have anyone else to hang around with, so he was with us. But if you look at that dynamic in that school, I can't remember. It's been a while since I saw it. But there was a few of them, and they're stuck together. That's not bad. That's just what it was at the time. And
it's a representation of school life, I think.
Yeah.
Fairly accurate to me.
And you go and ask Emily Attack about this, and I don't think she'll say that she felt put on and it was misogynistic. She loved it, and she talked about this when she was on I Was Celeb as well. So it's just arguing for argument's sake. The whole point of the show was it was for teenage boys, and what do 4 teenage boys do? Talk about girls, lie to each other, try and get pissed. It's the way of the world. It's not hard. It's not difficult. It's not supposed to be a representation of gender diversity and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fucking comedy show.
Yeah. And, sometimes it's just not for you, and that is absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Like, not every scene has to be for everybody. And that's what I kind of feel like with the critics. They're trying to say, well, he could do this and he could do that. And like, yeah, and that'd be a completely different show and a different audience. So and that's not what The In-Betweeners was ever about. And that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Because then there are shows for people who don't look like the 4 guys in this. And that's fine as well. That's great. But it just seems so disingenuous.
I mean, you don't see it the other way around. You look at, if you go on iPlayer, I mean, because they took BBC 3 away and then it came back and it was online and then it wasn't online, they messed that all up. But there's stuff on iPlayer that's for young urban kids. What that means is it's for black youth of London, because that's what the show's aimed at, and that's who's in these shows, which is fine. But you can't then say, where's the white kids? Where's the girls?
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's
because
your demographic.
Out of place.
Yeah.
You want your show to appear to be as realistic as possible in most cases. So why would you try and force things for the sake of it?
Yeah.
And that's what it feels like some of the criticisms of the In-Betweens have been. They're criticising it because it's not something that it's not, rather than because of what it is. And I think that's dumb as shit. Did you watch much of what happened to the cast post In-Betweeners? So, did you ever see Fresh Meat?
No. That was the only one I saw. I saw the first season of Friday Night Dinner. That is it.
I really enjoyed Friday Night. I didn't think I would. I thought it'd be a bit too basic beach. And actually, it's quite fun and nice and happy, and not massively cynical, which I generally like cynical stuff, but I did like that.
I thought it was
fresh. Oh, sorry,
I thought it was going to be a bit like, remember My Family with Chris Marshall?
Yes, that's what I was thinking it was going to be. That very broad. I know it was on Channel 4, but I was actually like a BBC kind of a comedy, which doesn't normally sit right with me. But yeah, Fresh Meat was Joe Thomas Simon when he goes to uni. So it almost feels like Simon's gone from being at college in the In-Betweeners to being at uni in Manchester. It's not the same coach. He plays someone called Kingsley. But it feels that transition because he's a very similar character, just grown up. And that was very good. That even changed my opinion of Jack Whitehall. I always thought he was a bit of a twat. But actually, I think he plays a character that's a bit of a twat. But that's good. That's worth a watch. I think you'd probably enjoy that. And that's Jesse Armstrong and Sam Bain, who you'll know as the writers of Peep Show. And Jesse Armstrong did Succession. So I think you'd enjoy that. That was a good one. So the other two, obviously, so that's Simon and Will with Friday Night Dinners. The other two, like Blake Harris, is it Harris or Harrison?
Harrison, I think.
Yeah. He sort of has moved away from comedy stuff, because I think whenever you see him outside of comedy, because I know he's done some of the celebrity football match things they do, like England versus the world, he kind of has been pigeonholed as still being Neil. Like, they kind of treat him like he's this lanky moron, and he's obviously not. So I feel like he's tried to step away from comedic roles and do something a little bit more, not necessarily completely straight, but just less in the comedy world, it feels like. Because I feel like it must be difficult to try and shake the shackles of being typecast, because as far as I know, this is the first thing that those 4 boys have done. And it's so iconic that leaving it, they must always be, Jay, Neil, Will, and Simon. They must always have that in the back of them. And I think that the other one, Jay, he has very much leaned into his character post that world, hasn't he?
Yeah. But he from in his kind of point of view, though, it seems like he loves it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he does. You see a lot of the cameo videos and those kind of things that he does, where he's just playing what seems to be a version of Jay, but probably almost part James Buckley as well. It does feel like there's not a massive difference between the two. Whether he's cultivated that or that actually is him, I don't know. But I haven't seen him in a lot else, to be perfectly honest. So where would you put the In-Betweeners in the pantheon of 21st century comedy? Because I think he's got to be quite high up there.
I mean, if you look at everything that we've mentioned today, I'd say it's, if you go on relatability, you go on rewatchability of it all, I would probably put it in the top 3.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the thick of it is better all-round show, if I'm honest. I think that's probably the best thing of the, multi-series British comedy. I think that is the one for me personally. I'm not counting Partridge because that started in the 90s and what have you. It's top 3. Maybe The Office is probably fighting out for it again. The cultural impacts in it's The Office, and The Office is great. I'm not sure how well it's aged because it feels very specific of a time, doesn't it? But I'm not sure on how it's aged because the David Brent film, was just okay. Like it was
funny though.
There's a few bits then. Like I didn't dislike it, but it wasn't The Office. It felt like they were struggling to, recapture lightning in a bottle with it, and it didn't quite hit the right way for me. But yeah, I think The In-Betweeners, I think, sits very highly for me as well. Right, so I think there's no real point in us looking at any modern comedies because the decade's far too early, isn't it? I mean, there's some. I'm trying to think what are the good 2020s British comedies. Is there anything that particularly stands out?
You're going to have to look this up. It's that bad.
I'm looking now. So it's Truth Seekers, which was an enjoyable show on Prime, but Staged was good. David Tennant and Michael Sheen.
The COVID. Yeah.
The COVID, that was enjoyable. Meet the Richardsons, I enjoyed. I May Destroy You. It feels like there's a lot of potentially good one-hit wonder seasons. That I Hate Susie's supposed to be good. But there's nothing like Taskmaster feels like the biggest thing that's come out. And that was probably late. Yeah, it would have been late teens because that was pre-pandemic. There's nothing that really is kicking me in the bollocks when it comes to 2020 comedy. Nothing sort of grabs me by the throat and says, this is the best thing.
So, going on 2020 sitcoms UK on Google, I have not seen, other than Stage, because it was just them two and there was nothing else to do, I have not seen a single one of these things. Man versus Bee, but I don't think that was what it was. But I'm looking on the comedy.co.uk thing, and there's very few things that stand out. And what do? They're all 2010s that just seem to be good. This Country, that was decent. When was that out? That was probably 2017 that started and ended in 2020. Yeah. There's not a lot grabbing me in this decade so far. And that's here as well. And I think that, again, like we've said over and over again, it's a problem because they've put themselves into a corner now of where if you're going to be different, who's going to give it the go ahead? Where they're going to put it? Because if you are that different, then where's your audience? But if you play it safe, you can't play it safe like you used to because you'd have to conform. So you can see why it just doesn't exist, and that's where you get to America.
It is sad. I mean, there's been a lot of talk recently about Hollywood struggling to make comedies. So I know we had that, is it Anyone But You, the Glenn Powell, Sydney Sweeney film that did quite well, apparently. We had that one that me and Matt went to see last year with Jennifer Lawrence. I was forgotten the name.
Oh, the one. Yeah, I was gonna.
No Hard Feelings.
That's the poster. Yeah.
Yeah, No Hard Feelings. Like, it struggles to market those films, and they don't really sell very well because they don't really market them properly. And it was fine, but sort of throwaway and forgettable. It feels like that is starting to mirror onto TV. And I know we spoke specifically about British comedy, but I do think it's a general problem that comedy isn't comedying that very much at the minute. Outside of, Taskmaster seems to be the only one that's really drawing.
When you look at it, other than Film of the Year, Ricky Stenicki, which is single-handedly bringing it back.
Yeah.
We even talked about it at the time when we talked about that film, that it reminds you of a few others, things that we used to get all the time of that, but it's rare.
It is. Okay, so last question in this section. Future episode, I thought we could do comedy duos, comedy groups, comedy team kind of things. Anything that we haven't mentioned on either of the last two podcasts, whom you think we should put in to a future podcast to be discussed? I've got two. So if you're going to have a thinking time, I think we need to talk about the League of Gentlemen coming up, because I think those 3 or 4, if you include Jeremy Dyson, they started a movement in comedy that's still going with Inside Number 9. So I think that needs to be discussed. And for Matt alone, I think we need to have a Mitchell and Webb discussion, because the Peep Show boys have done a lot. And we probably need to talk about the creators of that as well, going on to do, as I said, Succession, and they're smashing it out of the park. So I think that those are comedy groups or duos, and Mitchell and Webb's that we should bring back and have a conversation about in the future. Is there anyone else that you think is worthy of mention?
It's like late 90s, early 2000s. It's not strictly comedy, but what it turned into. Top Gear was more of a comedy show than a car show before it got cancelled.
Mm-hmm.
And you think what them 3 achieved and continue to achieve, I think they've got to be mentioned somewhere, because it's not drama, it's not reality, it's something all of its own. Mm-hmm. But some of the stupidness that happened after that was kind of scripted. It was as funny as, at its peak, it was as funny as anything on telly. So we can mention.
I think that's a fair. I think it's heavily scripted. Their banter was, writers who've put that together. But I do genuinely, I see exactly where you're coming from. Because where do you categorise that? It is sort of a comedy show that's about 3 dickheads who talk about cars.
Yeah.
It feels like it's a comedy show about a special interest show. Yeah, I think that's fair. That's fair. Right, so we'll leave the Brit-Com stuff there, and we'll be back in a minute just to talk about an upcoming film called The Present. Welcome back for the final part of the pod. We're here to discuss a film called The Present, which is a movie which will be due in British cinemas on May 24th, so that'll be this coming Friday. It's a film that stars Greg Kinnear and Isla Fisher. It's about a young boy who discovers he can use an enchanted grandfather clock to go back in time. He teams up with his siblings on a quest to bring their separated parents back together again. Stu, this ended up being a Groundhog Day film, and I didn't realise it was going to be. So how angry were you when you realised it was a Groundhog Day film?
Well, they've had the Isla fishes in it and the old home and away thing, which is always agreeable. So
Yes.
it had that going for it. So I didn't really care that much. And the fact that it was only an hour and a half, I thought, oh well. But I thought, okay, ancient heirloom, go back in time. I thought it might be kind of like, okay, they've got to go back in time for when their parents meet and get them together and something. I thought it would be something like that. When they did it for the second time, I thought, oh no. And then I thought the effect was pretty good, actually. You know,
Yeah.
I know it's only rewinding film, but still, for something like this, you don't expect that. And then they did it a third time, and I thought, oh, okay, this is just he's either doesn't know or he's done me here. But then when they started doing it from a different perspective, I thought, okay, then I'll give you this one. I like this. This is different.
Ever wasn't it?
Yeah, I haven't seen this very often with these kind of things. Normally it is full Groundhog Day. Oh, what could you do different this time? Change this little thing. But showing it from the different perspective of the different characters at different points in time after they've done the things and got their money through different means and stuff like that. I thought it was actually really clever, and I wasn't then annoyed and after the third one. So that was about 20 minutes in. And I sat back and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw the blurb of this about a young boy, I thought, you know my stance on kids in film, they're generally annoying as shit. And he was a bit annoying, I'm not going to lie. He was a bit of an annoying kid. And then when it started with the Groundhog Day stuff, I thought, oh, is this just going to be constantly reliving that same day? I did not expect to have in my notes the word Rashomon, because I thought there's no way this film is going to have any real depth to it or any sort of anything original. But it sort of was, because as you say, they started to show it from different angles. It was the boy's perspective, and then it was the sisters. Then we had a day with the parents. And I just thought it was so inventive for a film like this that could have been a very easily throwawayable, bit of fluff that was just, two kids go back in time and set the perfect date for their parents and they love each other now and everything's happy. And it wasn't that. Like, there was a bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? There was like some grit in the ointment to it. Like, there's a little bit of something to rub against with this movie that I found really enjoyable, that I was not expecting at all. I thought this is going to be really saccharine sweet, and I'm going to be bored shitless, and I'm going to be angry. And it was saccharine sweet, but I wasn't bored at all throughout this. I was invested in the journey for all of the characters. Really surprised me how much I enjoyed this movie.
Yeah, and for once, when the various things where the things started to happen that ruined that period of time that they'd got to, and when the girl was looking at him, they're like, oh, here we go again. And you think, okay, that's another one to tick off the box. Normally, this stuff would piss me off. But actually, I thought, okay, so you'll solve the phone problem, then you've got to phone the student problem, and then so it was, you do one thing, then you show it from a different point of view, and then you take another one and you throw that away, and then you do something different. Did not think I'd like that either. It comes because normally it's the same format, but I mean, you can't be having a go at autistic children. You just can't be having this. But the middle one, the middle boy, oh dear.
He's a little shit, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a bit too much. It was a bit too much. I did think having the younger one being mute through choice, I think he was said. And I thought that was a nice touch, having him communicate through the voice of Barack Obama.
That did tickle me when it's like, why have you chose Barack Obama of all people? But yeah, that was quite funny. You chuckle throughout. There was several gags that I laughed at. There was ostensibly a kids' film. I did not expect to.
I mean, it doesn't feel like a kids' film. It feels like a film made by people who watched this kind of thing as kids.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, that makes perfect sense, actually.
I think when you say if you like them, and we'll jump to it now, when you say like if you like this or you want something similar, I would say Big, because it reminded me a lot of Big.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good shout.
Like from the heirloom point of view and like just the general vibe of it and the kind of the feel of the whole thing. Not so much the look, obviously, because that's an ancient film at this point, but you can definitely see that people who watched Big and films like Freaky Friday and stuff like that, I mean, this is not a body switch thing, but it's, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and Parent Trap and those kind of films.
Yeah.
Those films do have their fingerprints all over this.
Yeah, I think that's what this is. I think it's people who grew up liking them films have made a film like that themselves, and this is it.
Yeah. I think that's a really astute observation, actually. Excellent. I mean, the film that I would have gone for, I've got no real basis for why, but I'd have gone for School of Rock, because it's a heartfelt comedy that stars kids. Like, there's no real link between the two, other than these were just two things that I really enjoyed and sort of made me happy to watch.
A bit like Nativity as well.
Yeah. Like, I like Nativity. It's like the kids are annoying as shit, some of them. But yeah, I did like that as well. So it does have that fingerprint all across these movies, I think. That you can see the through line, as you say, that there's that stable of films that clearly would have been an inspiration to Christian Ditter is the director writer of this film. So you can just see that where he's taking his inspiration from. I'm genuinely surprised at how much I enjoyed this film. Did not expect. I mean, again, I like both Isla Fisher and Greg Kinnear. I think are both very good actors, and I've never seen them give a bad performance in anything. So I knew it was going to be well acted, if nothing else, and it was sweet, and it was funny, and like I wanted it to work out well for them. So I really enjoyed this movie. 2 thumbs up for me. Go and see it when it's out. Stu, thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what? Is this 4 out of 6 now that we've enjoyed of these, or something like that? These early screens?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, I think so.
Obviously, Max Beyond is always going to be awful. I can't imagine anything beating that. But this was actually, it was, if you like that kind of thing, an Escape to Witch Mountain, and it's almost like the Disney Sunday afternoon film from years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like that. If you enjoy, I mean, everyone really enjoys that kind of thing. I think, yeah, go and watch this. You'll have a great time. I don't think it's for kids. I think it is for us.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think kids could watch it.
Yeah,
they also
definitely can be.
Like, it's full on family enjoyment. This one is for me. Brilliant, lovely. Okay, so yeah, that one is out on the 24th of May in local cinemas. Check the local listings to see if it's playing near you. But definitely, give this one a bit of your time. Right, so we're done for the week now. We're hoping next week is going to be a music cast with the triumphant return. We're playing it by ear. We'll see. If it's not a music cast, we might have the week off because we didn't do it last time. I say we'll have the week off and then we'll watch something on Netflix and decide we need to drop that. But the plan is at the moment to do a music cast. But
you know what? If we don't, we can do this on the floor. We can get Ash back. If we don't do the music cast, we'll do a spoiler cast of Shogun. Because you would have watched it by then, wouldn't you?
No, I'm nowhere near it at that point of watching it.
Oh,
because I'm still watching Sopranos. Like, I'm just at the end of season 4. And there's like 30 episodes left. So I don't think I'll have done. I mean, I've still only done 5 episodes of Fallout. I mean, I'm at the point where I might just give up on Fallout, to be honest. I didn't love it enough to carry on.
Disgraceful. It's only 8 episodes.
I know, but I've got 30 episodes of Sopranos, and that's good. Whereas Fallout's just fine. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I don't think I'll get a chance to do Shogun. But no, obviously, because they're saying that's going to be renewed for season 2, which is like the exact opposite of what the showrunner said not that long ago, that it was going to be a one-hit wonder.
But it could just be based somewhere else in a different time period. So a bit like how Three Body Problems been renewed now, and that's obviously going to be probably not star the same people. Spoilers.
Right, okay.
But that's been renewed, and that whole story will be finished now. Like it wouldn't be already anyway because of how successful that was. But we could talk about Baby Reindeer and the absolute lunacy of that woman again. But, yeah.
Have you watched the Piers Morgan interview yet?
Yeah, she's unhinged.
She's deeply, deeply unhealthy and needs help, I think. I didn't particularly enjoy the interview though. Like, it just felt like Piers Morgan was he just kept asking the same question, which resulted in the exact same answer. Did this happen? No. Did that happen? No. Fuck's sake, this is not a very probing interview at all.
Yeah, no, she's doing personal appearances in the nuclear apocalypse that is Coventry, so
that's worrying. But like at the same time, it kind of like my fears on that show was very much the fact that it was clearly a mentally unwell woman, and they're using her to sell a story. But now she's using it herself to sell a story, which I just don't like any of it, if I'm honest. Like, the show was great, don't get me wrong. The fallout of it is just makes me hate the world, if I'm perfect. Like, society is fucked if this is where they're going.
In this way, this is why you need to go and watch The Present.
Yes, because The Present's nice and it made me appreciate the world. Right, we'll leave it there this week. Probably see you next week, fingers crossed. Make sure you subscribe on whatever podcatcher, and a 5-star review would be tremendous. Stu, for this week, do you want to say goodbye?
Phoebe, goodbye.
It's goodbye from me, and remember, be excellent to each other.